Hi, my name is Sweet Fang. I'm from PwC. Today we've talked about supply chain, the government ethics, and all that. I'm going to pose a question on gender diversity, since we have two ladies here. It hasn't been answered. It's gained a lot of traction in the West, for example. Obviously, Malaysia has a lot more, if you like, more prominent female leaders. We've got Tan Sri Zeti, we've got Zarina, and you've got two ladies here, and some CEOs in banks. I like to hear from the gentlemen, actually.
Louder. I think people at the back cannot hear.
I would like to hear from the gentlemen.
That was a shock, wasn't it?
Do you think Malaysian companies should do more in the gender diversity space, particularly as it relates to talent development and management of female leaders?
I think that, if you look in the context of most countries, I think that you probably see a lot more ladies driving companies and holding very high positions in Malaysia than probably other places as well, other places. So I think that there is definitely people here who are a lot more open, and this glass ceiling thing is not, it's probably there, but not to the extent that would be in other places. Whether we will do, I know that just now you asked me that question outside, whether there are enough engineers in my place who are going to become CEOs. Somehow, when it relates to a profession like us, we don't seem to find enough ladies who want to become civil engineers. But I must tell you, the head of our operations who actually looks after the progress in all our projects is actually a lady. So, it doesn't stop. I don't think being a lady has stopped that lady from being what she is, as far as looking at the overall schedule of all our construction operations are concerned. So if you say that I'm purposely looking at to promote some ladies up just because she's a lady, I don't think so. Yeah, but I think that where there is talent and there are people, again, if you look at the finance profession today, ladies are beginning to dominate.
Long ago dominated.
So, it will just happen. It will happen, and as long as we are not stopping people from, in fact, if they are there and they are the right people, you get a chance. So I would like to see one day. Of course, I don't know. From what I see, the immediate term, I don't see a lady CEO in running construction operations in IGM yet, but who knows?
Yeah, Tan Sri.
Yeah, I think certainly. I think human beings were the male and female, I think, wired a bit differently. I mean, I'm not gonna go into this Venus and Mars thing, but what I found in my career so far, I mean, certainly different people, different genders certainly bring a different perspective and a different way of getting things through. And I work quite closely with quite a few human capital or HR firms, for example, and we do quite a bit of thinking on profiling and stuff. And certainly, I think the term socialized power, for example, ladies get are very good at getting certain things through, and men too. I mean, in their own field, although we're threatening to become a bit endangered. Never mind. Khazanah, I know exactly the number because I checked on this 3 days ago. 52% of Khazanah employees are ladies, actually. However, I should state at the senior level, it's less than that. I mean, this is, I think, quite a common thing. Although, honestly, I don't think there's any reason there should be any glass ceiling. I do appreciate, and this is something my staff will know. We still have a tradition. Everybody who joins will sit down for about an hour with the CEO at the executive level. We're still small enough to do that. And one conversation I always have with the ladies, and this is typically sometimes in a group of 5 or 6 of the joiners at that time, is we do encourage, obviously I'm also a husband and a father. I know that not to say I probably don't share enough. My wife, who's just across the road, will probably agree that as homemaker and raising children, there's some division of labor that we've agreed on. But so for example, we put things like virtual private networks in our system that they can go back, have dinner with the kids, family, and maybe put in an hour of work at 10:30 or 11 p.m., cutting down slightly on the escrow time, only slightly. So
24/7.
That is one. We've also created a fellowship system that people can come and work for 2 days a week, for example. And there's some very talented ladies or even men, but typically ladies who've taken a few years of work to raise kids that we've allowed everyone. We have some economists, for example, very accomplished ones, who come in and work in Khazanah or will work in Khazanah for 2 days a week, for example. So perhaps we are a bit smaller in that sense, and it allows us a bit more flexibility, but certainly in our companies we would encourage that.
The last question of the day, shall I pass it therefore to our host, Sir Dato' Wong?
Okay, my name is Wong Chun Wai. I will try to be the unkind press for a while.
Oh dear.
Okay, my question is quite simple. Basically, that we all know that CR is a requirement, and of course, it's good for the profits. At the same time, it's also good for the image of the companies, and of course, it fulfills the interests of the CEO in certain ways, and of course, the companies. And shareholders do not have a bone to pick already. They were very supportive of it, but of course, we're going through very difficult times, and that profits have gone down. Projections have not been met, and that we do cost cutting, and that certain parts of the fats would have to go. Okay, and of course it's very difficult at this point when you tell your staff that you have to take a little bit of pay cut. You may lose your job. You may lose your BMWs for some other cars. Yes, of course. And at this time like that, how do CEOs react to these CR allocations for CR? And we cannot be telling our staff that, look, we need to put some money to save a turtle, to save an orangutan, or for rugby, for example. Okay. So how do CEOs in these difficult times reconcile and handle CR issues? Thank you.
Thank you, Dato'. So difficult times, how is corporate responsibility viewed in such difficult times? Obviously, charitable giving normally does drop off the harder the times and creeps up again when times are good. But there's other forms of corporate responsibility. So why not? Who would like to answer that?
Again, it's a question of balance, because in the good times and the bad times, you can't afford to throw the baby out with the bathwater, even in the good times. So when we say sustainability, we're thinking long term. The easiest thing to do in times of hardship is to cut your training budget, cut your marketing budget, cut everything that everybody can't see, and cut any giving or sponsorships or your sustainability budget. And if you go too far, when you try and revive yourself in the good times, you can't, because you have taken the heart out of the organization. You no longer have well-trained people. You no longer have an image in the marketplace if you've cut your marketing budget, and you no longer have the trust of the other bodies that you have been actually entering into sustainable activities with, and they won't believe you when you come back in 2 years' time saying, it's okay, I've cut my costs, I'm okay now, I'm back in the market. So this is a balance, and it's a journey, and it's a lifetime, but it's very, very hard, because the temptation is very strong when things get tough to actually eliminate the easy things. They look like the easy things. Believe me, in the long term, they weren't easy.
I think that's a dilemma all of us face all the time. I'm at the moment facing this problem of spending money on the next 3 years for this rugby development program for schools. And here we have in the group on immediate payroll, I know that I have about 1,500 staff who are earning below 2,000 ringgit, who will be going through a level of pressure, and it will look absurd that I'm spending quite a bit of money in keeping this program going. So again, as Irene said, it's a question of balance. Of course, there will be a lot of criticism, but we have to live up to the fact that, again, we would want to see a certain level of continuity. We will, of course, talk to the people concerned to say, okay, I'm not giving you this much money, but it's going to be slightly less because have to be seen to be responsible as well. I'm giving the answer. So it is something that we all face all the time. But as she says, as Irene said, we have to keep the programs going so that we don't lose the confidence of the people who are collaborating with us on some of these programs. So we will have to also it is important for the people on the other side realize. In fact, for example, I sit on Cobra the other side, and I reduce expectations quickly to say that, hey, this year is going to be a tough year. Don't expect to push these guys to ask for more money, or even the same amount of money, because you know they are under pressure. You can't expect to keep your programs going in a lavish way or whatever. Let's find other ways of doing this with lesser money or lesser contributions. So this is, if it is a collaborative effort, you know that both sides will come to some kind of compromise, and we can still do it in a lesser scale, more modest, and still get the gist of it going. So it's a compromise, really.
Yeah, certainly the several principles of firstly, the company has to afford it, and obviously, so affordability and is one. Two, I think was mentioned, was sustainability. So you don't just change course, and there will be turbulence along the way. The fact that it has moved or should move from more ad hoc kind of sponsorship into a program suggests that you already have a plan. There's probably some efficiencies that you can get out of that. So more bang for the CR buck, if you like. We have a saying: you cut the fat, not the muscle. So in order to keep on going, and really then finally how to balance all that. So in short, and I would further than that argue that in certain things actually you should go counter-cyclical, human capital development, for example, which are typically long tail. Scholarships, for example, you should actually don't flinch and keep on investing, and because by the time in the 97-98 crisis, for example, many organizations that give scholarships actually pull back, including very big corporations and many GLCs among them, and they find that there is actually a gap in at the time. So really it's about getting smart, and obviously and then I think that's what crises are for, to make us tougher, I presume. Thank you.
I think from our perspective, I think all of us here are business leaders, and none of us are in businesses which is in the short term. All of us are in businesses to stay, right? So as mentioned, the key word is sustainability. And that's why CR has to be embedded as part and parcel of the organization. And the organization has to believe that it actually is contributing towards the organization. And if you look at crisis or whatever it is, cost as a discipline and efficient processes should be embedded in the business process anyway. And if we look at how we manage a CR budget or individually, it shouldn't be deemed as a CR budget. As mentioned, embedded in our scholarship programs is to reinvest for future talent who's actually going to come back and actually contribute towards Astro and the industry. So it is not something that is going to be on-off button that you switch on. It is part and parcel of doing business, and it's part and parcel of a long-term business.
Some very good messages. Thank you very much. I think with that, I would like to reluctantly call a close to the proceedings, and just remind us of some of the things. It's impossible to summarize what was said, and I will do my best to pitch a few points. Rahana has mentioned all along that it must be embedded in the organization, owned by all, but led by the CEO. Obviously, with Dr. Krishnan, our very fit gentleman player, said that the CEO must lead from the front. And it's not just the cost. And the rules of the game, importantly, are the same, whether you're operating in Sentul or China, Vietnam, wherever it happens to be. Irene has mentioned that CEOs need to institutionalize the processes, and companies need to have KPIs for corporate responsibility. And employees want to know what the company stands for. It's not just great banking or whatever and beautiful logos, but it stands for something with which they can identify. So I think running through this as a thread of the war for talent is definitely on. And this is another battleground in the war for talent. And why not? As you say, maybe not for the noblest of reasons, but good things arise from that. Tan Sri Azman mentioned a number of things, of course, but talked about a question of balance between stakeholder and shareholder capitalism, and not letting it swing either way excessively. There's a question of leadership and guidance and focus and measurement always in corporate responsibility, not just shooting off bullets that we don't really know whether they count and hit their target or not. And lastly, I guess what he said once was, people want honesty in corporate responsibility as in anything else, and you'll soon get found out. We had a lot of advice to the champions. You are all there, you know who you are. Get that appointment, get those allies, be focused, do a good sell job. Strategic selling, PwC will give you that as a maybe a bit of free advice to some of you champions on how to choose it, because they themselves are very good in PwC, I know to my cost. Get your allies around, be entrepreneurial, and talent gravitates to successful companies. I'd like to thank everybody here today, the 4 participants, Azman, Irene, Dr. Krishnan, and Rohana. Of course, you in the audience, so many people who asked questions, Eric, Essie, Andrew, Sharon, Jaradzi, Sweet Fang, Dr. Wong, I'm sure I've missed out somebody. All our supporters and sponsors and so on, the Securities Commission, Bursa Malaysia, SIDC, ACCA, who have supplied a lot of people here as well today, and of course our host, StarBiz, and the Star Group. Thank you very much for all being here. It is a journey, and the train actually does appear to be running. We have some inspirational examples here, not just of the champions, but actually of advocates and actors themselves. And of course, in this train and this journey, the CEO, as leader, has to take the lead. With that, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.